Good. All right, it's just after 6 o'clock. We are going to continue our June 3rd Board of Selectmen meeting. Would invite everybody to please stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everybody. First up on the agenda, we have public comment. Is there any public comment?
I would hate for the microphone to go dead before the end of the evening. Some years ago, had a conversation with Cordell Johnson, who is the lead attorney for the Municipal Association, and the topic was opinion. Opinion goes as follows. Opinion, expert opinion, opinion sustained by statute, adjudicated opinion sustained by statute, and adjudicated opinion sustained on appeal. Thank you kindly.
Thank you.
Really just a request, any chance we can move the proposed budget up in the schedule ahead of the residents' concerns? I've got a meeting at 7, and I'm a little concerned with, we've got a lot of residents here, might have a lot of concerns, and I might have to leave before we can talk about the budget stuff.
All right, is the board all right with that? Great. We'll move that up to number 2. All right, I'm not seeing any more public comment. I'll close public comment. New business. First up, Stratford Regional Planning Commission presentation.
Good evening. My name is Jen Sis. I'm the Executive Director at the Stratford Regional Planning Commission. I'm joined here this evening with James Burdine, who is our Regional Economic Development Planner. Been gradually working towards getting to all 18 communities in the SRPC region an opportunity for me to stop by, say hello, introduce myself, but also with a larger goal of having an annual opportunity to check in with each of the communities in our region. I've been director now at SRPC for just over a year and a week at this point. So still getting to know the region and all of our communities. Just a little bit of a background in general about regional planning commissions. Regional planning commissions are established under state statute. And we've got a handful of obligations that we are to fulfill for our communities, so regional comprehensive plan, housing needs assessment, and to provide technical assistance for our communities. SRPC also functions as an economic development district, and James can answer more questions about that in particular. It's a federal designation that gives us some resources to do a little bit of additional economic development work with our member communities. We are also a metropolitan planning organization, and I think this is the one thing that by and large communities are most familiar with in terms of our roles. This is, again, another federal designation. This is the transportation programs. This is more than half of our budget goes to transportation planning, and we're here to help facilitate that process by which your projects on larger roadways, such as our state numbered routes, make their way up into the state funding process for future construction. As I mentioned, SRPC is comprised of 18 communities. That includes all of Stratford County, plus we have 2 towns from Carroll County and 3 from Rockingham. So we're not Stratford County. We are the Regional Planning Commission. We by and large are that amalgamation of communities that most closely associate with one another, and it's always a little bit fuzzy at the boundaries. Each community that pays dues is entitled to have 2 commissioners, and those commissioners serve as our governing body. So Milton would be entitled to have 2 commissioners, of which we have none. We'd love to see you and have you there at the table. So I mentioned you form the Board of Commissioners, govern the Regional Planning Commission functions. Also, those commissioners double as our policy committee, and the policy committee governs our transportation programs, that MPO piece. And so all communities in the region, regardless of whether they're dues paying or not, are entitled to a single vote as part of the Metropolitan Planning Organization. So even if you are not a dues paying community, we would love to have at least one commissioner represent your community so that your voice is heard during that federal transportation planning process. Policy Committee meets monthly on the third Friday morning of the month. Looks at a lot of those transportation pieces, and I'll mention in a little bit some of the things that we've got coming up in the transportation realm. We're also on a day-to-day, our business side is governed by an executive committee. This is a selected group of the commissioners themselves vote to select 7 commissioners that are our executive committee. They provide our day-to-day oversight. We also have a technical advisory committee. The technical advisory committee, typically staffed by municipal staff. We are very happy that we do have a representative from Milton there that is actively engaged, Bruce, and making sure that your transportation needs are brought to that technical advisory committee. That technical advisory committee is used to inform the policy committee, the decision-making body on the transportation side. Just few highlights of some things that we've had going on in the region and we have coming up. So one of the things that we do on the land use side that is available to all of our communities is we annually reach out to your building inspector. We summarize and we pull all the building permit data for every community in the region, and so we are tracking land use development trends for all the communities. And so you can see kind of where you are, what's happening in your community compared to your neighboring communities. We've also been very actively engaged in working with the Explore Moose Mountains Byway, and I believe also is it Branch River? I think up in this area. There's another one. Have that program. James will touch base on a few of our economic development projects that are ongoing. On the GIS side, we have several staff that are dedicated to providing geographic information services. This is mapping data. And I know the town is going to be rolling out its own online platform. And we're already talking about some of the data layers that we have available that we can that you can incorporate into your online viewer as well. One of the ones that we're currently working on developing, that's something that we're developing in-house, is an updated recreation lands data layer. So where do we have parks and playgrounds, other athletic fields, and other recreation opportunities across the region? The existing statewide layer is significantly out of date, and so it's something that we know would be of great benefit to the community. So we'll have that available. Hopefully in the coming month or so. We've sent all of those out for a QA/QC review to each of our communities to get some input, make sure that what we have is accurate. So we're in the process of updating that. A couple other data layers that we've prepared for communities that you might be interested in is for hazard mitigation plans. We've got critical facilities and other hazard risk data mapped. We've also worked in coordination with Rockingham Planning Commission to prepare a set of base maps for all communities that are impacted by the MS4 permit, the storm municipal separated storm sewer systems permit. And for that, we have urbanized areas as well as impaired water bodies all mapped and can help you if you need to start mapping your outfalls and other MS4 systems. We can help you work through that data set. On the transportation side, one of the exciting things that's available now, there's CMAQ grants that are available right now, as well as build grants, and those are things that we keep track of funding availability and make sure that you, the communities, know that those funds are available and have access to them, and we typically provide some technical assistance with those. I do have to say that when it comes to kind of the enhanced technical assistance, the more discretionary side of our transportation programs, we do have to make sure that we're meeting the needs of our dues paying communities first. So for those communities that aren't paying dues, we wouldn't necessarily have the opportunity to roll up our sleeves and kind of take on some of the grant writing with you, but certainly are available for the basic technical assistance piece of things. We are currently launching the update of our long-range metropolitan transportation plan. You may have seen a survey that we have circulated. We are really trying to get input from all 18 communities on transportation needs in the region. So that is out and live now. And try to get as many responses as we can to that survey. That will help us to understand not only needs, but help give us some of the base information we need to start drafting goals for the region. And that will then in turn help identify what our priorities are for future transportation funding. So part of the long-range transportation plan is we work with you, the community, to identify projects that should be included in that plan. That in turn becomes essentially a conveyor belt. So those projects in the long-range transportation plan ultimately we hope will make their way into the state's 10-year plan and then into what is called the TIP, the Transportation Improvement Program. That is the short-range plan of projects where dollars have been appropriated to the projects. So we want to make sure that we've got a good list of projects that accurately represents the needs of the region. We will be reaching out to you. We do have a few projects in the long-range plan right now from Milton that we'll want to better scope out and start to build some information for those projects so that as things advance and move towards a 10-year plan, they might be ready to roll when they get to that point. Also have coming up later this summer, early fall, Gasset hearings. Speaking about the 10-year plan, we're back in the 10-year plan cycle. We will be hearing from our executive counselors over the summer, and hearings should be announced in the fall. They usually start in September, so we will be there advocating for the inclusion of projects from our region in the 10-year plan. So with that, I think I'm going to pass it over to James just to talk about some of our economic development programs that we have really quickly, and then we'd really like just to hear from you, any thoughts you have for how SRPC can be of assistance or questions that you might have.
Good evening. Again, my name is James Burdine. I am the Regional Economic Development Planner with Stratford, and I've been there since January of 2017. The two major programs that I head up are on the economic development side, our comprehensive economic development strategy. That's a regional economic development plan that includes a priority project list from our member communities. Having a project on that list can make it eligible for certain other types of federal funding if you're seeking grants for implementation. It can also help communities in talking about projects and how to think about them, how to put them together, to really work through the process of developing a project into a stronger version of itself, and having that support in a regional plan, even if you're applying for funding outside of things that require it for eligibility, can make it a better looking project by having that support. And then I also oversee our brownfields assessment program. We began working with the Lockhart Field site in Milton in 2016, and we've done a series of phase 1, phase 2, and then some supplemental assessments on that site. I don't really have the time or the information to go through any details of what we've done on that site, but if the select board is interested, I'd be happy to come back and bring our environmental consultant along with me, and we can present some of the details of that to you all. I think in particular on that site, we've been communicating with a few different points of contact, originally with Tom Gray when he was on the Board of Selectmen, and then Heather, and then David Owen. So I think it would be useful to get everybody on the same page with that information, so the town understands where to go from here, what the next steps are for that site. So I guess with that, I'll take any questions.
All right. Any questions from the board?
My only question, would you be available, economic development meets once a month. Would you be available to meet with economic development?
Yeah, I would definitely be available for an occasional meeting.
Okay.
I think that's something where the balance, we've had a couple other communities that wanted me to more or less staff the committee. That's
No.
probably a little bit too
No,
far.
no, no.
But yeah, I'd be happy to come up for a meeting if there's anything particular that you wanted me to speak to or anything like that.
Yeah, we have, no, I have your card here. I'll give you a call. And I'm the representative for them. And
Okay,
I
great.
think it'd be great to have you come in and speak. Thank you.
No,
Yeah.
I strongly support this organization, and we'll definitely have to look into it during our budget season, and I think it's long past due, so I appreciate you folks coming out and talking to us, so.
Ernie?
I just think the comprehensive economic development plan is an important thing to be a part of, especially if you're looking to extend wastewater to Exit 17 or other projects like that, where you might be able to get some federal funding involved or other sources of funding. As they pointed out, having it in a plan like that just bolsters any grant application that you put together. I think Bruce could probably attest to that as well.
Yeah, no, it's all good stuff.
We're biased, we seem to think so too.
All right, well, appreciate you guys coming in.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Have a good evening.
You too. All right, next up, we're gonna jump to proposed budget committee schedule process.
How this all began was because one of the board members had mentioned that when the selectmen present their budget to the selectmen, they're more detailed than they are to the budget committee. He asked, is it possible to have one meeting so we hear the same thing and we all on the same page? With that, I decided to try and put a draft, which you have before you, and the committee has looked at it. I have not seen them offer anything to it, but I'm presenting it to you people because I think it's possible it can be done. If you look at the top part, I have it as the town administrator will set the schedule for all departments to appear before the boards to present their budgets. This would be done according to the calendar that I have on the other pages, which I have 5 Mondays that I've already put in for, except for the conservation. I was going to move it, ask them to move, and I changed my mind on it. Now, most of the first page does not really, is more or less for the budget committee, because I have new members on board, and I wanted them to see everything that I see here, all my experience for 10 years, what to look for. The ones that I'm really concerned about is prior to the budget presentations, I put a list of what is needed, and the other one is the protocol, how we are going to conduct the meetings. Okay.
What we're trying to do with this is we're trying to reduce the number of times that department heads have to come and present their budgets. So if we thought if we could have just basically the department heads present once to the budget committee and board of selectmen at the same time, and that's where we get the information out. Board of selectmen ask whatever questions they've got. If we need clarification on an item, the budget committee then would ask for what is this for, what is that for. We're taking some steps to try to reduce the amount of questions that we have in the budget committee. We're meeting with the department heads early on, like we just met with the police chief last week, meeting with fire this week, to review, and we're going to be doing that with everybody that has a budget, hopefully, to find out more, not to set budget, but ask questions, have them present. This is, when I have a maintenance line, that is for, oil for the tractor. When I have a fuel line, that's for fuel for the gas for the lawnmower. And so we're trying to get that information sort of up front, trying to do our homework ahead of time so that we can reduce the time it takes us to review the budgets, to ask questions, and it seemed like every year the same questions come up. So with the meetings that we're having, hoping to reduce that, but also make it possible for us to have a joint meeting like what Bob's put together here in the schedule, where we have the budgets presented once to the Board of Selectmen and Budget Committee. We all hear the same thing. We have an opportunity then to ask questions. The Board of Selectmen would ask their questions. If we had any in the Budget Committee, we could ask ours. Board of Selectmen makes whatever changes to the budget they would feel would be needed. Then they would pass that to us, not necessarily at this meeting, okay? And then we, the Budget Committee, because it is in our budget, and if we would say this what budgets we're gonna go over. If the department heads wanted to come, they could. But ideally, we will have all our questions answered. So it's just a matter of us saying, yes, we agree with it, no, we don't. Or we'd like to see these cuts made. The other thing, you'll notice we're trying to start the meetings earlier in September. And the reason for that is so that we don't end up the end of December, beginning of January, trying to set budgets. We realize some things we don't know until December, but that's just a little piece of the overall budget for the town. And we're also going to be trying to do this for the school. That's just a little overall piece. It's mainly insurances, workman's comp, health insurance, that kind of thing that you don't know until the last minute, if you will. So that's sort of what we're trying to do here.
The only thing is, now, I put a calendar together, and there's a couple dates that are wrong, but there's no budget attached to them. Now, I put department heads in there only for illustrations only. And that was just we start at September 30th. That would give us an extra one. I wanted to start October 7th, but I want to be cautious because not knowing how two boards will work together. So I decided to go a week further back. There is nothing set in place. Now, I know you have your regular meetings, and then depending on the size of your agenda, I put small budgets in there. They're very quick to go through when you have it. When you don't have it, there are some that there's nothing going on. We can put one big budget in there and then a few others in there that are, medium size. And I've scheduled it for 5 Mondays in a row. We can be done before Thanksgiving. Now, on page 3, though, I have, not the wrong page, okay, page 4. I have November 18th. There, I believe that's going to be your regular scheduled meeting. If you can, I put finalize. It's not to finalize the budget. What I was hoping to do, hope you'll do, is that you'll start recommending the budgets, all of them, but except for the insurance and benefits will probably not be ready. But they seldom ever change. I mean, not change, we can't change them. Once they're set, they're set. But if you could start going through your budgets and make your recommendations to it, the following week we meet on November 26th. There, I'm going to ask the chairman to go over our recommendation, to put our recommendations in there, not finalizing it. Keep it open in case budgets change. That way we don't have to take it, revote it, unvote it, and revote it again. Now, we've moved our meetings from the 3rd Tuesday of the month to the 4th. This will allow the planning board and the CIP, and hopefully that will be recorded, because I think the public needs to see how this process goes through. And and this is just for the budget presentations. This is not anything to do with warrant articles. This is just a presentation. I don't have December's, January, or February schedule put together yet, but this is the presentation. This is the one that takes a long time. And what I'm looking for from this committee, should you want to pursue it, I'm going to need input from you people as well. If there's something in here that you'd like to have changed. The only thing I won't change is the starting date, because that is crucial. If we miss it, there's not very much room, and I don't want to run into it with the school budget presentations, which I am going to put as December 4th. Is there any questions from the board?
No, I mean, it seems like you guys have done your due diligence, and budget season has always been chaos ever since I've started politics in Milton, and I think it'd be behooved us not to at least give this a try this year. That's my personal opinion.
I think this will benefit everybody. At first, maybe not so much, but the board, the budget committee would have to come to your meetings, and it's not a bad thing, but, because when you're ready to start, because again, depending on your agenda, how big it is, and when you end it, we can put this together. Now, I do have the town administrator, again, we'll set the schedule for the departments. If he needs assistance with that, I would be glad to help him out with that, because I'm familiar with it. And prior to budget presentations, we do need all budget workshops, what do I want to say? Backup
The
material.
Yeah, if we could get the backup material before they present, so we got a chance at least to go over it, to ask the question, because if we get it the day of the meeting, we haven't had a chance to review it, to go over it, so then any questions you've got are gonna occur later. So, having it, before the presentations is gonna be part and parcel of what would have to happen for this to be successful. Otherwise, we're running right back into the same thing we had before.
I would like to have at least a week before we have our first presentation. I think I've covered just about everything.
Yeah, I think this is a great idea. I think as the time gets closer, we might have to adjust the schedule a little bit, and I think that if, it looks like the board's in agreement here, I think the key will be to be working closely with Ernie. Ernie will be really our representative to get everything pulled together with you guys and get everything to you guys in a timely manner, so everybody has a chance to review it. And it would be great to save everybody time for having to do the presentations or sitting in multiple meetings talking about the same thing. So I think it's a great thing to streamline and
You do have the calendar, right, that I gave you?
Yes,
Okay,
yep.
what you see budgets in there, that's the dates we're gonna be working on. Those that have nothing on it, we might be able to put quite a few of them in there, because that's all we're gonna talk about. But I do need your input. If there's something in the protocol that you would like to change, I know we have you guys, you'll be asking your questions first. When you're done, the budget committee, Mr. Chairman, will recognize whoever's gonna talk. Should it happen that selectman has a question, we'll bring it right back and keep on going until we're finished. Then we'll present the next budget through it with the same procedure. So, that's
Yep.
it. Is there any other questions? Okay,
Ernie, you all set? Yeah. All right,
all right, thank you very much.
thank you. All right, next up, resident concerns, Skip Bridges.
Good evening.
Good evening. Just before we start, I just want to make sure that we stick to talking about positions, not employee names, so please leave any employee names out of any discussion we
The first thing I
have.
wanted to make very clear. The first thing I wanted to say was that we are not, and I'm talking on behalf of myself and a few other residents who are signatories to the letter that you have in front of you. We're not here asking for any employee of the town to be fired or for anybody's job to be jeopardized at all. This is really all about a policy difference. And the reason that we're coming before you is because the Milton selectmen they're duly authorized by the zoning ordinance to, and the people that they delegate to implement, enforce, and administer the provisions of the zoning ordinance. And we have noticed that there is a lack of implementation of the zoning ordinance when it comes to Mighty Joe Campground. And our position on it is that the land use office has adopted a policy of enforcement with respect to Mighty Joe, which in our view is essentially lawless. Now, I'm saying that that's a guarded term. I don't mean that they're acting illegally in the sense of a criminal act or in violation of some statute or regulation that's designed to regulate activities that they do. What I'm saying is that they are enforcing a policy that in our view is unlawful. And what that means in my lexicon is that they are acting in a way to enforce the ordinance in a way that is not consistent with what the ordinance requires. Right? So I'd like to, in order for me to explain how why we think that's true, we have a lot of observations that have gone on over the last number of months, actually over the last year, but it really kind of starts actually in 2017 when Three Ponds Resorts applied to the ZBA for a special exception to expand Mighty Joe beyond what the 2012 settlement allowed for the site plan at Mighty Joe. And
So, could I just bring something up
Yep.
really quick here that may ease everybody's mind? So, the town has received the complaint, which was very lengthy, and there's several items in there that you guys have brought forth to us. And currently, the town is going through each one of those items that you have identified in the complaint and working on a response to each one of those items. So I don't know if it really would behoove all of us to go through each one of those items tonight, because we're not going to have answers for you.
Well, but I have some suggestions for you. And
so-
I think that it's really important that you understand what's actually going on vis-a-vis the policy of enforcement with regard to Mighty Joe, because we're concerned about what's going to happen going forward. Not just what has happened, but what's going to happen going forward. And it's something that I think that you really need to be aware of. All right? And I'm not going to go in detail over what the ZBA decided last year. There are just a couple of really important findings that they made that really are key to this. The first one is finding number, and it's in the packet that you got. It's finding number 70, which held that the use that was intended was, I'm sorry, number 90. The board found that the use was injurious, noxious, offensive, or detrimental to the neighborhood due to the amenities and other uses that come with that, being traffic, smoke, etc. Then when you go down to finding number 104, that's the key. One of the 5 criteria is that the use has to be consistent with the spirit of the ordinance and the intent of the master plan. The board found that the proposed use is not consistent with the spirit of this ordinance and the intent of the master plan, as the board found the intent of the definition of campground, when established in zoning, does not fit with water slides or water features, and the amenities do not fit the definition of a campground. Okay? So that was decided in June of last year, and within the month, the land use office issued their decision. And their decision was, from our point of view, essentially designed to nullify what the ZBA had decided. And it's really important to understand the language there.
Excuse me, would you please note for the record that I'm leaving the meeting? It's an important point. Thank you. In the minutes.
It's important that you understand the difference of opinion about how the zoning ordinance is to be enforced. All right, so what the land use office issued was this decision at the request of the engineer for Three Ponds Resort. And it's understandable that they would be asking this because they want to know whether what they want to install is an accessory use to a campground or whether they have to get a special exception for it. All right, makes sense to me that they would ask. So the land use office said, notwithstanding that the application to expand Mighty Joe was denied, The existing campground continues to retain certain rights to construct new and maintain existing amenities that are deemed, note the word deemed, to be customary, note the word customary, and incidental accessory uses to the principal use of a campground. Okay, now, the problem with deemed is we don't know who's doing the deeming. The people who are supposed to be doing the deeming are the voters of Milton, nobody else. The job of the land use office is to administer and enforce the zoning ordinance, not to deem what it says. And then if you introduce the word customary, you don't really know what customary is, and you have to understand what that is in relation to words later in the decision. So, and then it says, and that said campground does not have to remain defined by what standard 20th century zoning definitions state. Now that's true, but what they have to be defined by, they have to remain consistent with what the definition of campground means in the zoning ordinance. Nothing else. That's what it is. So interpreting the ordinance, you have to look at the intent of the ordinance, and that's what the ZBA did. They looked at the intent of the ordinance, they knew what Mighty Joe was when the ordinance was passed, they know what it's supposed to be, they know about the master plan, and they said, no, these amenities that they're proposing aren't consistent with what we see as a definition of a campground within the meaning of our ordinance. That's what they decided. But then it goes on. First of all, it says, they're being provided for use by campers only and will not be open to the general public. Well, there's no general public limitation to the uses in the table of principal uses. All right, particularly for accessory uses or for recreational uses, there's no general public exception to whether you can do them. So whether Mighty Joe offers it to the general public or just to its campers are getting an invitation that's invited to the general public, like a hotel. If you are going to stay at a hotel, they say only our guests can swim in our swimming pool. That's all that Mighty Joe is saying. Only our guests can use our amenities. There's no difference between that and offering anything to a public. So saying that they're only offering it to their campers means nothing when it comes to zoning enforcement. So then we have the special exception request was for an expansion of the campground into vacant parts of the property and new campsites. This request concerns constructing amenities. So what they were thinking was, and I get this because I thought this at the beginning of the whole proceedings myself, was that the application was only for expansion of the number of campsites. But if that were true, why in the world did they mention that they were adding amenities? And on their site plans, they had, I think, 2 acres, I could be wrong, of land marked off for future amenities. So we started asking, what are the amenities? What are they? And finally, the ZBA said, we want an amenities plan. That was offered 7 days before June 28th when the ZBA decided, finally, after 10 months of hearings, what was supposed to be, whether they were going to give the special exception, and they denied it. So, and then if you look at the first full paragraph on the second page, finally, even though said amenities were shown on a site plan before the Milton Zoning Board, those amenities were not part of the official request to expand the campground beyond the limits of the existing area and existing number of campsites. I don't know what the official request was, other than the actual application to the ZBA. And the actual application to the ZBA said amenities. So if you stand back and you see what's actually being written here, they're saying...
So this is your interpretation of what they were saying, and this was all outlined in the complaint we received.
Okay.
And the town is working on a response to all your concerns in the complaint.
Okay.
So tonight, we can't really answer or discuss any of this because we don't have the answers yet. It has been worked on. There was a lot of information in there that the complaint addressed and what was being asked for, and the town is taking it seriously, and it is working on a response
Okay.
to all the concerns on where the town was coming from.
Couple
So-
of points that I need to make to you, though. Okay, because there's a really easy solution to the question of whether these are accessory uses or not.
Again, this is your opinion,
No, it's right in the code.
so.
So if you decide that anything Mighty Joe wants to do is an accessory use, you know, you don't have a zoning code. All right, you just don't. But the code itself says, in section D of Article 1, in the event that the requirements within this ordinance are in conflict with one another, the more stringent requirements shall apply. So if you're looking at, okay, is this a recreational facility or an outdoor recreation facility or an accessory use, the more restrictive definition is special exception, requires a special exception for recreational facilities. Okay? So all of the things that we have complained about, and we've listed there, are conflicts between the idea that they ought to be able to have accessory uses, and whatever they want as accessory uses consistent with their business plan. And by the way, the zoning ordinance is not designed to help them with the business plan. It's, on the other hand, if you look at what the zoning code says, all right, no, they're supposed to have a special exception for a recreational facility. They're supposed to get a variance if they want to serve alcohol or liquor. They have a liquor license. Were you aware of that? They have a liquor license out there, and they are serving liquor. Serving beverages and food in the LDR zone is prohibited. And they're doing it anyway. And nobody's stopping them. And the longer they don't get stopped, the easier it is for them to argue that the town just let it go. And so when you try to stop them and you say, cease and desist doing this, their response is going to be, well, it's already in place. Now, you have to indemnify us if you lose. So the problem then is that you're being presented with a fait accompli gradually over time. One final example, the cabins. All right? The planning board presented amendments to the zoning bylaw to the town meeting, Article 3, and that would have allowed recreational facilities, and there was a definition that would have included what we think they want to do, were allowed as of right in the LDR zone, and that they could get a special exception to put in something called camping cabins, defined as a cabin on a chassis with wheels that sits there, that is 8 feet wide, 400 feet long or less, 40 feet long or less, or 320 square feet or less. That's a camping cabin. I'll bet you that every single structure that they have moved in over there, all those 26 cabins that they have over there, meet that definition. But your voters voted against Article 3 and defeated it. So what Mighty Joe is being allowed to do is go ahead and put in whatever they want, even though the voters have said no. So what we want, what we think that since you are in control of how this is enforced, you should issue cease and desist orders to install no further structures until it's appropriately decided what they can do, that they remove the cabins, that they not rent the cabins, because again, that's a hotel. No hotels in the low-density residential zone. That's not even with a special exception. They can't rent them. They can't serve food. They can't serve alcohol. They can have a little store that has candy bars and stuff like that, but they're not supposed to be serving food in competition with restaurants that are in the commercial zone. What we want is for commercial enterprises to be encouraged in Milton in the commercial zones. Right? So if we want to interpret the zoning ordinance the way it should be interpreted, it's very clear the process that needs to be followed. It's very clear what has to happen. If you have an expansive definition that says the definition of what can go in here can be modified year to year, regardless of whether there's an amendment, well, that sounds like how some people want to interpret the Constitution. But that doesn't really fit the situation where every year you can submit new amendments to the taxpayers and to the voters and say, we think that this should be done and why. But don't try to sneak them by. So we're coming to you because we think that cease and desist orders should be issued to Three Ponds Resort to not install any further structures on the property without building permits, that they have to get variances if they want to do some of the things that we itemized, that they have to get special exceptions if they want to they want to provide recreational facilities and outdoor recreation, and they should be removing structures that they have already put on because, well, take a look at all that roof area that's no longer draining into the ground. All right? So, and just one final thing, they installed 12 of those in 2018, and they just installed 14 more. You have to have at least 5,000 square feet of new space that you're adding in order to ask for a site plan review. Do the math. 14 times 320 is less than 5,000. 12 times 320 is less than 5,000. But if you add all that together, it's more than 5,000. So they've installed things that require a site plan review. They're structures, they're not vehicles, and they should be removed. And they shouldn't be allowed to put any more in. So
right,
again,
so-
we're just asking for cease and desist. We'd like to have the code enforced,
There-
and we just want things to be done the way they're supposed to be done in accordance with the code.
Yeah, so there's a lot going on here. There's a lot of information that we've been presented in the complaint or the concern you guys have. I know I personally, and I'm sure the whole board takes them very seriously, and they need to be addressed. But the board needs to have all the information before they can jump to a decision or a conclusion to be in the best interest of everybody.
Absolutely.
So I'll make a motion to direct the town administrator to work with the land use office to answer all the questions set forth in the statement attached to the selectmen agenda request form, with said responses made available to the Board of Selectmen for its June 17th meeting.
I'll second. I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
I too. Any further discussion from the board or comments from the board?
No, I mean, I think pretty much you summed it up. There's a lot going on here. I take it very seriously. And, you know, before I would ever issue any cease and desist, of course, we need to run it by the attorney to make sure, things are.
But if you don't get asked for it, you don't know that we want it. So that's why we're here.
Right.
Thank you very much.
You all set? Or?
I'm good.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. All right. Next up, 174 Ford Farm Road, an abutting town-owned lot.
Yeah, Stan. Okay.
You have some notes and a map there of map 37, lot 33 and 34. Mr. Flanagan purchased lot 33 in March of this year. 34 was also owned by the same owner. You don't have it?
I don't have the map either, but
We don't have maps.
Okay, there's a map on it. 3734 was actually tax deeded back in 2002. It was sold back to the owner in 2006 at a public auction. At that auction, it was said that that lot would be merged with their Lot 33. That was part of the sale at that time. The merge never took place. Then in 2015, they lost the property again to a tax deed. We still have it in our name. Since Mr. Flanagan has purchased Lot 33, it has been come to our attention that the house that was supposed to be located on the lot he purchased, being Lot 33, is actually sitting on Lot 34. There hasn't been I have not seen a survey on it, but Mr. Flanagan will discuss his lot and the pins that he's found. I did have the code enforcement officer just take a ride up and take a quick look and see what his opinion was, and it does look like the actual house that he had purchased from it was a bank sale, am I correct? In 2019, that the house is actually sitting on the lot that we own. The previous owner has passed away. She passed away in 2016. So I'm gonna let Mr. Flanagan.
So if you look at the map, the two maps of 34 and 33,
I'm sorry you didn't.
it does show the building, and it's exactly where the building is on that map. So all I'm looking for is consideration to purchase the property from the town, quick claim deed, and move forward with the property just the way that it is.
So you own lot 33?
That's correct.
Yeah, so, I mean, there's obviously more going on here than we can really come to a conclusion tonight, because I think we need a lot more information.
Yeah.
However, I know I'd be in favor in having the town administrator look into this further and then
Yeah,
come back to
Kathy
the
and I
board
have-
with a decision.
We have lots of
Yeah.
deeds and maps
Yeah,
that lead up to all this. She has copies of everything.
And again, there was some changes done in the late 80s because the road was changed and it separated some of the land there too. So there's been a lot of things happen over the last 20, 30 years with that particular piece of property.
Right, so my only question is the consideration to sell the property that my house is on and keep the two lots as they are and move forward.
Yeah.
So are you saying the entirety of your building?
Absolutely.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, we staked it according to the map that's right there. And actually, two of the stakes, the original stakes, are easy to find. Showed them to Brian, and he said, "Yep, it's on our land."
So it's not just a small
It's not a
portion?
Connor, no.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
All right. All right, so the board is in agreement to
Yeah,
have
that will
Ernie look
Ernie
into
look
this
into
further
it.
and
Mhm.
and come back with a recommendation on the findings and
Sure.
how we should move forward.
Yeah.
Kathy, you need this one too? No. Thanks.
All right.
Can I go with
Yep. We're just gonna take a 3-minute recess.
Chip and Barbara, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
Hey, welcome to Milton.
I'm looking up there, I'm going, all right. When did you start?
The 15th of May.
You can have conversations, just bring my good When did you start?
The 15th of May.
Awesome. Oh, welcome.
Well, thank you. So you say you were taking a break?
Just a 3-minute, recess. Aaron had to go make a phone call real quick.
So are the microphones on right now?
Yes, they are. I don't know how to pause them, or I would.
You can pause.
We can't.
That means you can't talk about it, it's suspicious.
So is it your oldest birthday tonight?
Middle.
Middle.
Recess. Recess.
Recess. Oh, good.
Where's the swings?
Is in opposition legally. They say that every member of the zoning board.
Outsider donuts. Caffeine?
Out to the public, he argued his opinion as a future appeal case. And anybody can watch it. He should have been stopped.
Close to 100 kids.
But that's, it is what it is.
Climbed up.
All right. That's what I said about you. And they all have to sit down. How do you know that they're not gonna watch it? Ask them. Yeah.
That door's unlocked. That door's unlocked.
Well,
It is unlocked during the day.
now I can see.
All right, so we're gonna resume with the meeting
I'll
here.
try.
If we can get Ernie's attention. Sorry.
Zoning board can appeal and finalize it. And that's, I'm not sure if everybody understands that. They were all written.
All right.
I am going to put in an official request for a copy of the videotape of today's meeting and the minutes, because I may take legal action against the folks that said things about me doing things unlawfully, because I certainly didn't. And that's the way I feel.
All right, so we are going to continue on old business. First up is request to repurchase town-owned property, tax map 37 lot 64.
So I do not know.
Not that I can
Are they
see
here? No.
anything. I don't believe that they are here.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
But
All right.
apparently they're not here, so you could
Table it.
table it. Yeah.
Well,
Do we want to, so we discussed this the last couple meetings. It looks like they are offering 1,300. There's a potential, if the board's interested, to accept that offer contingent upon that they merger their existing lot with that
correct.
non-conforming lot.
Right.
So if the board, we could make a decision tonight to, if they were interested,
Yeah, if you feel
For
like.
the 1,700.
we, either or. So the idea repurchase price would be $1,743.15 for taxes, interest and cost accrued and applied at the time of the deeding.
Well, I think that since we're
So.
going from, what was it, 4,000 almost dollars down?
39.98.
Yeah,
Yep.
that it's not it's unheard of to ask for the 1,700.
All right. Andy, you're,
You know, either way, I mean, the property really has no value to anybody other than them. So if they, I'm fine with the $1,300. I mean, I realize, you know, at the auction it went for a little bit more, but there's some issues with the property lines. And we just heard another case. So, I mean, just to clean up some of these issues, just I personally say just, you know, take their offer for $1,300, have them merger it, and be done with it. That's my personal opinion.
The number that we had last week was
Right.
significantly higher than that,
Yes.
and that was based off from,
Yeah, that took interest and taxes that would have been assessed from the time that it was tax deeded, which was 2014, I believe, up until the present time. So by taking all of those out of the equation, you get down to the $1,743 number. And what the offer was $1,300. And checking with legal counsel, you have the ability to do either one or anything in between.
all right, do we want to wait for Aaron to come back on this, or make you want to table this and jump to the next one?
Sure.
And, okay. So next up, acceptance of $5,000 from Atlantic Broadband for the purchase of equipment. This was delivered to Town Hall as part of the new agreement we signed with them. This is the $5,000 they promised us to purchase new equipment.
Yes.
So I'll make a motion to accept a check in the amount of $5,000 from Atlantic Broadband for the purpose of upgrading existing or purchasing additional equipment to allow better recording and broadcast of public meetings or town events.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next up, proposal from law firms, process for evaluation. So Renee, I don't know if you want to speak to this?
Sure. Probably a couple of months ago, you asked David Owen, who was your interim town administrator, to put out a request for proposals for new legal counsel. And he did so and got responses from 4 firms, Preddy, Flaherty, Bellevue, and Pachios, I'm going to say, out of Concord. Mitchell Municipal Group, who is presently your legal counsel. Woodson Drummond attorneys out of Manchester. They also have an office in Portland, Maine. And then Wadley, Starr, and Peters out of Manchester, New Hampshire. All of them, again, put in proposals. And I guess what I would suggest is that if you want to interview these, just choose which ones you would like to interview based on the proposals that we received. And maybe you want to do a special meeting to get them to come in just to interview the 3, 4, 2, however many you pick firms to interview, and do that and before you make any decisions. So, I mean, that's the process that I've gone through in the past. But
All right, so maybe we could have a workshop session and have them, the different ones come in. We got 4. I mean, we're already working with one of the 4 groups, so I don't know if it would be necessary for them to come in. But,
right.
And I don't know how far do we want to reach out to
But
the other 3.
In all fairness, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, but in all fairness, we would probably want to ask the people, the large firm that we're working with right now, if they want to come in to, it's just,
Well, I know they will because they did give you a proposal.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I don't. Either way, I don't mind. I just
right. Yeah, I don't mind picking a couple of them and having them come in and talk to us. What's your thoughts?
Well, I mean, we get 4 different ones that applied. I think that, or responded, I should say. I think we should hear from all of them, see what they have to offer,
Yeah.
and honestly, maybe at the end of the day, we find that different law firms kind of have different niches that they're better at. Maybe we have more than one, and we use the one that would be more appropriate for the niche that we need. Just a thought. I mean, the price difference is pretty significant from one to another, really, at the hour rate, so.
So I can call them and try to set up, would you like 2 separate work sessions, or try to do them all in one?
Where you've probably done this much more than we have, what would you recommend?
Well, I mean, they could, if you limit the time, no matter what, so even if you limit it to 45 minutes, I mean, give that an hour and 15 minutes for each one. So it probably would be 2 different meetings, maybe 2 at each meeting.
Does that
I'm
work?
fine with that.
All right.
And what nights are the best ones for you other than Monday?
I'm open.
Uh, As long as it doesn't fall on a Tuesday when there's a planning board meeting, I can
Well, we will coordinate it then. All right.
be pretty flexible.
So we'll call all 4 and schedule 2 at a time.
Yep, in a workshop,
All right.
workshop session.
All right.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you. Next up, disposition of Brookfield Drive parcel, tax map 17, lot 5.
So, Mr. Chairman, this is the one that you just completed the 4114A process on, which were 2 public hearings, at least 2 weeks apart, and you had both the Conservation Commission and Planning Board give you recommendations on allowing the lot to be protected by conservation. And you do have let's see, I don't know if it's Carly Simon, if that's how you state it or not, but this is the, I'm trying to find it here. Yeah, the Carl Simon Family Charitable Trust. Seaman, okay. So they had sent an email stating that there were 2 other lots in that same subdivision that were acquired for $5,000 each. And I don't know where you stand on that. It's the email that I got, and it should have been in your packet. Example, that's what they would be offering for this parcel as well. It would be $5,000. And if that's something that you would like to accept, then I guess the only thing I would say is that it'd be $5,000 with any of the legal costs that aren't required to be paid by the town to be covered by the trust.
Yeah, I mean, I'm totally all for, I mean, in one of our last town auctions, we auctioned off, most of that property up there is in conservation. This piece, it has no value really to the town. You can't build on it, you can't do anything. It's nothing but a mosquito haven for, up there. It's really nothing. So if they were to offer us $5,000, it would be behooved us probably not to move forward and let them put it in their conservation. That's my personal opinion.
All right.
I'm good
Aaron,
with
you
that.
good? Yep, I'm good with it. I think it's a fair offer, so.
Yeah.
I'll make the motion to authorize the town administrator to work with the Carl Seaman Family Charitable Trust managing trustees and town council to finalize and execute the sale of tax map 17 lot 5 of Brookfield Drive to the Carl Seaman Family Charitable Trust for the price of $5,000 with any legal and other costs not required to be paid by the town of Milton, which will be the seller, to be paid by the Carl Seaman Family Charitable Trust, the buyer.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. So just to give a quick update, Aaron, we decided to have Ernie set up a couple of workshops to have the law firms come in
Okay.
and discuss further with them. We accepted a $5,000 donation from Atlantic Broadband. And I tabled discussion about the town-owned property that we started before you had to step out,
Okay,
so
sorry about that.
that's all right. We were basically, Andy was okay with accepting the 1,300, the
4315.
4315 is what was last due for taxes on it. That's where we're at.
And it was $4,000 was the amount that was
Just under 4,000 and brought it to auction.
3,900 and some change.
Yeah.
Yeah, my only concern, Aaron, is that there is issues with that piece of property. And, you know, that piece of property, it does no one any good, but other than if they merge these two pieces. Because you probably could never build on it, because they don't have the setbacks, by looking at the maps. I mean, I just personally, let's clean this thing up. I personally say take the offer for 1,300. I mean, we're getting other situations like tonight. So let's just move forward, and you know, these aren't anything that you know, they've come before us now. It's something that we didn't cause, but we, you know, have to clean it up. So that's my personal opinion.
What's your opinion on it?
Well, the only thing I'll say to that is, when you buy a property, that's why it's important to do your research before you buy it. I mean, it's really, it's not solely, it's not the town's responsibility to clean up
no, I agree
all
with
these
you.
messes. It was the people who purchased a property, and the fact that some people bid on that property without doing their research before going to the auction really wasn't the town's problem. It really is the people buying the property. Now, that being said, I agree that we do have all these properties that are town-owned or taken from taxes that are not doing us any good, and we do need to get them back on the tax roll and out of the town's hands, because they're not benefiting the town in any way.
Yep.
So, I mean, the 1743.15 for what was due with taxes, I don't think is that unreasonable.
I agree. I mean, it's only $400 more, and it's still over $2,000
I
less
think
than
it
what
just,
was owed. So
I think it's more of a fair way to do it for if this comes up again where we take a property, that we at least get what was owed for taxes when we sell it. That's my only thing. I hate to
Yeah, no, I mean, you
set a
can,
precedent,
I'm
so
fine
to
with the
say.
1743. You can counter offer them, have Ernie, if that's what you so want to do.
So,
I'm fine with that.
I'll make a motion to allow the repurchase of tax map 37 lot 64 by Jacqueline and Matthew Monahan contingent upon a concurrent merger of said lot with the Monahan's primary lot described as map 37 lot 61 on the town of Milton tax maps at the price of $1,743.15.
I'll second it.
all in favor?
Aye.
All right, perfect. Okay, that concludes old business. Any other business may come to the board? I know Ernie's got a bunch of stuff in his selectmen comments. So I think we're good there. Move on to approval of the May 20th, 2019 meeting minutes.
I'll make a motion to accept them as written.
I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next up is expenditure report.
Yeah, I just printed this out for you folks. If you have any specific questions on it, then I can get the answers for you if you have them.
I took a look at it. It's seems pretty typical from what we've been seeing.
A couple of them have been fixed too. government buildings, page 4, line 014194-120. Got $1 for a placeholder, but it's over.
I'm good.
All set? All right, next up is public comments pertaining to topics discussed. Any public comment?
Thank you, Larry Brown. I would like to thank the clerk for having recorded my having left the Board of Selectmen meeting on the public comments on zoning issues. I value my oath of office to the ZBA and Planning Board and try to deal with ZBA and Planning Board issues only as they come to me on those two boards. And I thank you for your courtesies in permitting me to do that.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Will the planning board meeting be taped, videoed, and broadcast tomorrow night? Do you know?
I don't know. I can't say for sure. I can say I can request it, but
Can we request it?
I can ask them to do it, but it's up to the planning board on if they do that or not. We can't force them to. All right, I will close public comment and move on to administrator comments.
All right, well, I'm going to move through the things here where we've got some business. Pat Smith, DPW Director, actually needs authorization from the board to post an open part-time position at the transfer station. The employee offers resignation so he can move into another position that's more suited to his career objectives, so that's become open. That's 16 hours, I believe they work on Saturdays and Sundays. So he just wants authorization to be able to post the position.
Motion so said.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. The old fire station, 424 White Mountain Highway. We have a revised purchase and sales agreement from Cubby Lebret, who's the listing agent for the town. Same price, just extends the closing date to September 1st for them, and they're asking to be able to allow Walter Cheney and any of his agents to go into the building to do planning, surveying, engineering work up to that point. At this point, it's the governor has not signed SB 154 into law yet. I called today to try to get an update on that, but I did talk to somebody. They were going to call me back if they got information. I didn't get a call back. So I guess if you're comfortable with it, with extending the closing date to on or before September 1st, the purchase and sale is the same on it, and I do have a release form for them to sign if they're going to be in the building while the town still owns it. So that.
What about the turning on and off of the utilities and everything? I mean, that cost us last time, I believe, to do that.
Well, we don't have to do that.
We're not going to do that.
No, they're not asking
Okay,
to do
all
that.
right. I just want to make sure that.
Yeah, no, I'm fine with that.
So if, once they, yeah, I guess I'd ask if you were comfortable giving me authorization to sign on your behalf upon signature by the governor and upon them signing the liability, release of liability for them being in the building. I did have that checked by legal counsel, and they gave me the format for that.
I'm fine with it.
I'm
Yeah,
fine.
I'm definitely fine with it.
So, I'll make a motion to have the town administrator sign on the behalf of the Board of Selectmen contingent upon the governor signing SB 154 into law, and further having Mr. Cheney sign a release of liability holding the town of Milton harmless from any personal injury or property damage claims as a result of his and his agents' activities during the planning, engineering, and surveying activities in which he wishes to engage prior to the closing.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
That cover all of it?
Maybe get a copy of that
You didn't get that one?
for S's and G's. Thanks.
So some statuses on 79 Charles Street. That's now ready for either sealed bids or auction, whichever you prefer to move forward with. But that's something, you know, we can talk about next meeting. It's not something that has to happen tonight. I just wanted to give you an update on it. The final notices were sent out, and everything is free and clear at this point.
And are we still, excuse me, Ernie, are we still working on the White Mountain Highway next to Cumbies?
Yes, that's 565 White Mountain Highway. Our attorney reached out to the heirs to find out, and I'm not sure, there seemed to be some confusion about whether they've already been in the building to get personal effects and other items or not. But that's what he sent the email out about, to find out if they, you know, when they wanted to do that. I just authorized Laura Spector Morgan, in Walter's absence, to go ahead and petition the court to quiet title, just to keep from, you know, wasting time on it. So, you know, with the other issue, we can work that out. If they haven't been in there yet, I'm just not clear on that. So,
I
but
think they have.
I was under the impression they have.
okay. All right, so at this point, then, I authorize her today to go ahead and submit the petition to quiet title, and I don't know how long that will take, but that's underway at this point.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks. What about the Dawson Street house?
I don't know if I know which one that
Already.
is.
20 Dawson.
Yeah, that's another one that was held.
It's on the corner of Silver and Dawson.
Mm-hmm. I would have to look. It doesn't ring a bell.
Because
right
there was a lien on it. Unfortunately, it was a lien from the wastewater, and we didn't know it until, you know, we were gonna.
That wasn't why we didn't auction it. There was an issue with the way it was tax deeded that needed to be resolved.
Okay, I think I'm familiar with that one.
That was my understanding anyway.
It was my understanding that there was a lien on it from wastewater. Kathy told me.
Right, and I recall the issue with
anyways,
that, right. Yeah, I haven't moved on that at all, but I do know which one you're talking about at this point, yes.
Okay.
Good.
I will look into that further.
Thank you.
All right.
Let's see. So finally, I just was asked by the town clerk tax collector, Michelle Beauchamp, to give a thank you to Brittany Leach, as she helped out with getting the tax bills out last week. And, you know, given the number, you know, how busy it was really helpful. And Michelle said they wouldn't have been able to get them out without her. And having said that, I also want to thank, well, first I want to welcome Ashley Fortier to her new position as the land use clerk. She started today. And I also want to thank Kathy Wallingford and Danielle Marique for helping me with just getting organized and gathering pertinent information for these meetings. They've made it a lot easier for me. I haven't come in here looking completely lost. And then I also wanted to thank Pat Smith, Betsy Baker, both chiefs, Cross and Marique, Karen Brown, Michelle, Bruce Woodruff, you know, and everybody that I've met and talked with over the past couple of weeks has been welcoming and helpful, and it's a great group. So I'm hoping that things will move forward in a positive light. And that's all I have.
All right.
Except that we'll need to get you new office keys for the new Board of Selectmen and Town Administrator office.
Do you see the sign?
All
Yeah, we
right.
got the sign. I don't know if you got to go see it. That was special design by Danielle.
All right.
And
Thanks,
you
Ernie.
got business cards.
Oh, thank you.
All right, selectmen comments.
I just have a couple, more or less, these are just plugs. And I might be taking the wind out of your sail, but I was down at the town beach this weekend, just looking around, and, it's what I do. And I just want to say it is beautiful down there. All the hanging flowers, the Fairy House by Mary V's Unique Creation and her team did a marvelous job. That is just, it's so nice. I really encourage people to go down there and check it out, because it's really nice. So I just want to thank her and everybody who participated in building it. It's a nice additive. And I just want to shout out to Sentimental Resales and their big move from Route 75 to downtown. I just want to say that I encourage everybody to go into the new Sentimental Resale store. I guess they're going to be selling penny candy now, and so it's going to be a pretty neat little place. So I just wanted to say that to the Wing, Mrs. Wing. So congratulations. So we need little businesses like that in town. So it's nice. That's all I got.
Just want to remind everybody that this weekend is the summer kickoff. It's a great opportunity to go down and check out that beautiful little fairy house that they've built. It is very unique. Also thank Ryan Sincata for all of the work. He was the maintenance guy at the beach. He's done a fabulous job down there with the flowers and all that, and really beautifying the place. Also now the doom and gloom side, the tax bills. If you haven't received them yet, they are in the mail. So they are due on July 1st. Thanks, Michelle. She gave me that plug to give. That's it for me.
All right, I just want a planning board meeting tomorrow night. Planning board's going to start going through well, they've already started, but they're going to continue going through the CIP submittals. Tomorrow night, they're starting with the fire chief will be there doing a presentation. Also, there's 2 public hearings tomorrow night. One is a lot line adjustment off Middleton Road, and then the other is, as most people know here, I think everybody knows here, is the revision to the 2012 site plan to add accessory uses for campground amenities to Mighty Joe Campground. So that meeting starts at 6:30 tomorrow night. Anybody that's interested in going. That's all I got. On that note.
Motion to adjourn?
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.